Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 has just been announced, and in fact, this was and still is my most anticipated game ever. I have never wanted a sequel for a game more than Kingdom Come Deliverance, and that is partially because the story was unfinished, but also because I just absolutely loved that game, and I was very, very excited to see a sequel for it. And now that it's been announced, I thought it would be fun to go over my wish list and things that I'd like to see in the sequel. Firstly, I just like to say that I tried to stick to things that weren't already confirmed or showed in the trailer, and I want to make it clear that I am by no means a game developer, and I definitely don't want to act as if I know better than the developers of Warhorse Studios. Also, if none of these things end up being in the final game, it will by no means be a bad sequel. I adore the first game, and I'd be perfectly fine with the sequel having little to no major improvements over the first game. That's how much I love it. But, that already seems like that's not going to be the case. We've already seen plenty of big improvements. But anyway, without wasting any more time, here is my personal wish list for Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. The first thing on my wish list is improved combat. Now, I know this sounds like a vague suggestion, but I'll try and be more specific. One of my major issues with the first game was how difficult it was to fight more than one enemy at once. Now, difficulty is a great thing, I love hard games, but here it felt poorly designed. It was hard in a bad way, especially targeting between multiple enemies. Yes, I know I'm already going to hear from many people saying that it's hard to fight multiple people in real life too. Of course you're going to feel outnumbered and targeting should be hard. I understand all of that. I understood all of that when I made my review for the game back I don't even remember how long ago. And I still have people commenting saying stuff like that. I understand, but that doesn't make for a fun combat experience. You can make combat immersive and fun and challenging all at the same time. So the first combat improvement that I would make is ironing out the enemy lock-on system, or even adding simple indicators if an enemy is going to attack you out of your view, because this is a first-person game. If an enemy is attacking from behind, you can't see them. You have no way to see them. So it would be just kind of nice to have a little indicator, however they want to implement that. Another way that I would tweak and improve combat, and actually make it harder, is by weakening Master Strikes. In the first game, there was an ability you could unlock called the Master Strike, where if you were to parry an attack perfectly, you could also perform a counter attack and damage the enemy with each parry that you did. However, this ability was extremely easy to pull off, and it undermined combat, especially since enemies could do it back to you. And because enemies could do it back to you, ever since unlocking the Master Strike, the best strategy was always to stand around and wait for the enemy to attack you first, then perform a Master Strike, and wash, rinse, and repeat over and over until they were dead. It made combat trivial and a lot less fun, and it also made combos practically useless because there was always a better strategy with just standing and waiting to hit Master Strike. A way that I could probably tweak this or imagine this being improved is you would need a series of parries, or parrying the final hit in an enemy's combo, and then that would cause a Master Strike, something of the sort, because at the moment this ability makes combat extremely trivial. One final suggestion for improving combat is to remove the slow motion effect when parrying or getting countered. It's a small thing, but that honestly lowers my immersion quite a bit, and it kind of drags combat to a halt every time it happens, which is quite often. Again, a small thing, but I think it would do wonders. Now, the next thing on my wish list is improved customization. I love the customization in the first game. I love the different layers of clothing you could wear, the many combinations of outfits you could make. However, I do think there is some room for improvement here. I especially thought that there wasn't much variety for helmets in the game, and I would like to see some more unique helmet types, and even just plate armor in general. I would also imagine that this would make some sense since this new game is mostly taking place in Gutenberg, which is a massive city with a larger population, and with that comes newer clothing and newer armor. I just think it would make a lot of sense. Also, another small tweak to do with customization, but I would honestly love to be able to put on hoods. This is such a simple change, but it would not only improve customization, but also immersion. Being able to wear a hood while sneaking around is such a simple way to make the stealth fantasy more appealing. and I could only imagine how cool certain outfits and helmets would look if you could wear a hood over top of it. Now next up we have a more complete story. The story of KCD1 was pretty good, although it ended rather anticlimactically, and I really didn't like the ending all that much, as you can probably see in my KCD1 review. And I would love to see a more complete story here. In fact, I think it's necessary. As good as the story in KCD1 was, it was clear as day that it was part 1 of Henry's journey, and his story was not finished yet. Warhorse has already said that this game's story is longer than the first game, and depending on how long it is, this game could very well wrap up Henry's story. So I do believe that if this really is the end of Henry's story, then it needs to feel complete, and they really need to stick the landing. Across both games, we are talking about a 100+ hour long story, and if the ending still feels hollow, that will be a major problem, even more so than the first game. The only exception to this, of course, if Warhorse chooses to make this into a trilogy, and end Henry's story with a possible third game. If that happens, that would also be great. As long as Henry gets a strong send-off and a complete, climactic, and fulfilling story, I'll be happy. Now this next one kind of ties into the more complete story, but here I have more branching paths. The original game did have a few occasional moments of multiple paths and ways you can approach a quest, but they were fairly minimal, and it was usually you choosing how to do a quest rather than decisions you would make within that quest that could possibly even lead you down an entire new path, meeting new characters and such. Now, going back to the last idea, if this really is the end of Henry's story, I would honestly love to see possibly multiple endings in this game, as the first game only had one ending. Also, having more choice over who lives and dies would be very interesting to see as well. There were moments of this in the first game, yes, but it was mostly to do with smaller side characters. Here, as the story is now ramping up in scale, I would like to see, possibly important decisions and choices you can make involving major characters, such as Sir Hans or others. This does make the idea of a third game a bit more challenging, since you would need to come up with a way to make all of these branching paths valid, or if you do, choose to go down the path of making multiple endings, you would need to choose a canon ending, which I personally disagree with. But I would still like to see some more player choice in this sequel, regardless of how they do it. Now next we have a pretty safe one, but it's a better optimization. If I'm being honest, the one thing that had me really nervous after seeing the reveal trailer was the optimization. Seeing Kuttenberg and hearing about how large it is, how many NPCs are going to be there, all the large buildings, town squares, and vendors everywhere, it had me really concerned about how the game would run. I mean, Ratai in KCD1 would already have its significant frame drops, and Kuttenberg is supposed to be like 10 times as big. And seeing how grand it is really did make me question how the game will run. Especially considering that not only is this game larger, but it looks better too. If Warhorse can pull it off, this would be a fantastic improvement over the first, and it would be an amazing achievement. Warhorse have also recently stated that this game will be taking place over 2 different maps, and Kuttenberg will have its own map, and you would have a loading screen to travel in between the two. This does put my mind at ease a little bit, because now I know that even though Kuttenberg is so grand, it has its own map separate to it, and the game doesn't have to worry about rendering in a lot of surrounding environments. This does make me a bit less worried, but still, it's, that Kuttenberg just looks amazing, but it really does make me question how the game will run. So I'm hoping and praying that this game will run better than the first. If not about as good as the first, that will be fine too, considering, the major visual improvements and size and scope of the game. Okay, lastly, we have dynamic world events. I'm sort of taking a page out of Red Dead 2's book here, but I would love to see some more random dynamic world events out there in the open world. The first game had small moments of this, such as running into a guy that randomly gave me riddles, or people asking me if I can lend them a pair of shoes, or the dozens, actually hundreds of thieves running away in a town. Oh my god, the first time it was cool, maybe even the second or third time, but my god, after this 200th time of seeing a thief run away from someone, it got a bit annoying. But these moments you know, as often as they would repeat, they were pretty cool, and I would love to have seen more. I would love to be able to have more of these dynamic world events and have them occur less, be, you know, more spread out. I would love to be able to run into a hunter in the woods stalking a deer, or a lumberjack cutting down some trees, a fisherman by the lake. Also, the ability to fish would be great as well, but that's a smaller idea. These small moments help to give life to this world and help you feel more connected with the world that you're going to spend hundreds of hours in. KCD1 was probably the most immersive game I've ever played, and this is one way that I believe KCD2 can become even more immersive. Alright, there we have it. That is my wish list slash some ideas that I had for Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. Let me know what kind of ideas and suggestions you have for the sequel in the comments down below. Was there anything that I missed out on? I personally can't wait for KCD2, and no matter what gets added slash doesn't get added, I am sure that Warhorse is going to deliver a fantastic game yet again, and I'm very, very excited to see it. Thank you for watching.